This is the first time, I think you can correct me if I'm right, Mr. Norville, is this the first time that you've actually been on a panel to discuss your involvement with the film and starring in the film?
Yes, it is.
Wow, so people, you are so lucky to have his presence here. This is just something, it's amazing. And I must admit, I looked at the film, well, many years ago, but I had to look at it again, and I can't quite believe that I'm standing near you. And yes, do turn it on. And I've just found out something very exciting, that he comes from where my mummy comes from as well. So yeah.
We're family.
Yeah, so can I introduce you please to Mr. Herbert Norville. He was trained at the Anna Scher Theatre School in Islington. He's a very accomplished actor with many theatre and TV and film credit to his name. Just going to mention a few, but he has worked with many people, industry legends if you'd like, such as Harold Pinter, who we lost recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Lauren Bacall, at the Haymarket Theatre. He's also worked with Stanley Kubrick in Full Metal Jacket, I'm sure you remember that film, Alan Clark in Scum, Alan Parker in Bugsy Malone. Were you one of the little cute kids in Bugsy Malone, sir?
I was always cute.
Oh, touche. Class Enemy also was a play that he starred in at the Royal Court. Abide With Me at the Belgrade Theatre. So it's pretty broad, including TV work, The Young Ones, The Bill, Only Fools and Horses, well, you can't be an actor unless you're in Only Fools and Horses, and many others. So we are very honoured to have you, and of course to hear your experience of working in pressure at the time. This is also very exciting for me to introduce to you June Giovanni. We don't see many black women in film. She is a pioneering international film curator who has considerable, own it, don't look embarrassed, own it, who has considerable experience in film and broadcasting over 30 years. She's regarded as a resource for African and African diaspora cinema. She developed the Pan-African Cinema Archive and is based on her collections from years of working in the field of cinema. Her motivation for the archive is to make this a valuable heritage collection, and to make it as widely accessible as possible. In the early 80s, she was involved in bringing Third Eye, London's first festival of Third World Cinema, to London, and she's worked as a film programmer at the Greater London Council's Ethnic Minorities Unit, which at the time was a key period of development for a stage for the Black British independent cinema as well. There is just so much here, and I just hope that it will come out in the conversation. Thank you very much for being here. Last, and by no means least, it's one of our own here, Professor Julian Enriquez. He's a convener, he's an academic here, he's a convener of the MA Script Writing and MA Cultural Studies program. He's director of the Topology Research Unit. I must admit, I had to look that up, topology. Would you like to give the definition?
Yeah, it's stretching shapes, stretching geometry.
Right. Is that any clearer? Right. He's going to bring that out.
Of many interests I have, I don't think that's the most relevant for tonight.
Right, we'll continue. And he is co-founder of the Sound System International in the Department of Media and Communications. Previously, Julian was head of film and television at Carrimack at the University of the West Indies in Kingston, Jamaica. He researches street cultures, music, technologies, including those of the reggae sound system. He has credits as a writer-director, especially with the feature, sorry, that's from which I know your work from, Baby Mother, a reggae musical, the improvised short drama, We, the Ragamuffin, and as a producer with numerous BBC and Channel 4 documentaries. He's a sound artist with the sculpture Knots and Donuts, at the Tate Modern, and he's a founding editor with the Ideology and Consciousness Journal, and as an author with many, many different titles too, you know, of his publications such as Changing the Subject, Psychology, Social Regulation and Subjectivity, Sonic Bodies, Reggae Sound Systems, Performance and Techniques and Ways of Knowing, and forthcoming in 2020, Sonic Media, the Street Technology of the Jamaican Sound System. So you're very well versed to be here and quite diverse in your output. Thank you very much. Over to you, Julian.
Okay, well, look, I think that introduction, setting the vibe so positively, deserves a round of applause for me. I'm very thankful to be here and for Elizabeth for organising this really quite important event, and I'm particularly happy to have Herbert here with us, who's going to tell us a little bit about what it was like on set, as it were, right, which is also on street as well. Yeah. We'll get onto that. And June, who is incredibly well positioned to put Horace's film Pressure in a bit of a context. And I think the context is about how it was made and why it was made and wherefore. But also I wanted to bring it into the present as well, very much, because there's so much in this film. I've seen it in full length quite recently, and there's so much in the film Pressure that speaks for us now and to us now and with us now. And that, I think, is a really interesting, basically that's what makes a classic, isn't it? Something that reverberates through the generations, and that all of us coming along can find things of value and importance in it. So I'm going to start off, before I get to our two panelists here, I'm just going to say you a little bit, basically about how much Pressure and how much Horace Ove himself was an inspiration for me. Because in 1976, when this film came out, and we'll talk about those circumstances, there were no other black films available, right? And so feature films available. And so it wasn't until the early 80s that I started making films myself for the BBC and so on, and then went on in 92 to make my first fiction film, and still Pressure was a reference point. A reference point in terms of the style of filmmaking, right? We were just talking before about the new wave and people in France pioneering that, and also in America, John Cassavetes, we're using improvised and often non-professional actors, and that's what we have professional actors here, but that business of improvisation, which gives such an energy and a vibe to Pressure, is part of the tradition that Horace was pushing forward in this country. So there was if you like, as an up-and-coming filmmaker myself, to have Horace's work as a reference point was really important in terms of the style. But also, I have to say, in terms of the politics, right? Because it's one thing to have a political issue literally on the streets, it's another thing to find the creative language to put that effectively on the screen that's going to last literally over the generations. That's how we're thinking about it. and that, if you like, amalgam, because in my view, art cannot be but political, right? But some creative people want to, if you like, not face that challenge so readily as others. But Horace, in his whole life work and in Pressure, was very able to find, if you like, the creative means to express the political issues, and that's something that is a total inspiration. And also, this is the last thing I'll say. I don't want to go on very long. But Horace was a friend of mine. Still is a friend of mine. He was a friend of mine for many years, and the kind of I was quite a bit junior to him, as I've been saying, and he always basically supported me. He supported me kind of creatively and in a practical sense, because as you heard about, I'm not your Negro. He was a friend of James Baldwin, absolutely key literary figure, not just African American literary figure, but key literary figure. So when I was a junior, whatever, in the BBC, and I wanted to interview James Baldwin, right? And there's no way I could get to him other than through my friend Horace, right? And there's no way that James Baldwin would agree to do the interview other than in Horace's living room. Right? So Horace allowed me to bring my BBC crew into his living room, which is very beautiful, kind of Trinidadian with the wicker furniture and the plants and everything, which made a beautiful setting, and just basically enabled me, facilitated me in my career to do that. And that's just one of the things, one little incident that I'm sharing with you. But that was in many ways typical of how he approached and how he recognized others who were trying to do the, were trying to push the tradition along as well as him. Okay, so I have a personal debt to Horace, which makes it a real pleasure for me to be here tonight and perhaps introduce younger viewers to this really important work. So basically, first of all, I'm going to ask June, right? Because Elizabeth has already given a little bit of a background on Horace's own work, his oeuvre, but June, I'd like you to start off by saying a bit about how you fit Horace's work in the tradition of Black British fiction filmmaking.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you've speaking about Horace's politics and the importance of the political dimension of film, of arts, and of black film, because in the time you're talking about would have been around the time of Black Media Workers, Julian. We were all part of that organisation in the 60s and 70s. I'm letting the cat out of the bag.
Okay, so that was an organisation. There were so few of us in the media in the early 80s, we felt we had to get together, right? And that was really just to get the solidarity. Not that there's so many more now, but there are a few more. That mic isn't Elizabeth. That mic isn't working. And so basically that's what we did in Horace, the Black Media Workers Association, and Horace was a big supporter and patron of that.
Well, the thing is, at that time, there was so much happening across the arts, black people in the arts, and the Caribbean artist movement that started in the 60s, I believe, in that time, was actually energized by a lot of people from around the Caribbean and Africa, and they were getting together to do theatre, film, music, photography, and some of these people have been, if you've been going to the Get Up Stand Up show, a number of them were actually on the boards, and a number of them were actually there as well, because they're still working. But it was a really important time because the solidarity between the artists in all these different genres and art forms was what drew the whole sector. It was a solidarity, a political solidarity, but also artistic. And also, it was a time, if you think of where pressure was made, it was made in West London. And people like, not only Horace, but people might have heard of a film called Hero that's been doing the rounds at the moment with our Red Cross, another Trinidadian, also from Belmont. Because when you call Horace a Trinidadian, he'd say, not just Trinidad, I'm from Belmont. And Belmont is an important part of Trinidad because it was the place that the escaped slaves used to go to hold, to make it their place of residence. So it was always revolutionary. And so when Horace would say, I'm from Belmont, that's what he meant. He comes with that heritage, and it was part of what was here as well. So, Horace Ove, C.L.R. James,